It's not 8 o'clock yet. We got a minute or two. We're on, live and in person. All right, shalom, everyone. Shalom. Okay, so welcome to the Tuesday night Torah study. And we have a temperature a little bit better in the room today, so that's good. Although I still see people in their jackets. You'll probably end up taking those off. It's nice and toasty in here a little bit. Awesome. For those of you who play along at home, the color today was black. There you go. So, yeah. All right. So for those of you that are here, we've got Rob and Manny both on the live stream desk today. All right. So that'll be good. I'm sure we have Kurt on there as well, so we'll have... Kurt can't make it tonight. All right, well, they got the two of you at least. That's good. All right, so, but in the meantime, then let's encourage all you guys out on live stream world, just be nice and respectful to Rob and Manny as they try to take care of all the stuff going on in the live stream chat. All right, so tonight we're going to be doing, as we do every Tuesday, we're going to go through the weekly Torah portion. This week's Torah portion is Chayei. Okay. And yes, Sarah Beth, you had the right shirt. Okay, you walked in a little late, so you missed. I already made the announcement. A good choice on the shirt color black. Okay. Now, I don't even want to talk to you. You always have black on, so you always got it right. But there you go. All right. At least if the day I wear black, you'll have it right. So there you go. All right. So those of you that are on the live stream and you're new, what we do here is we have a public Bible study, but really is a private, local thing that you can participate in. So we want to welcome you here to do this with us. There we go. All of a sudden now the mic is on. Was it going over the live stream that whole time or not? Oh, was good? Okay, but now it got louder. Awesome. All right. For those of you on the live stream and those of you here, you will notice that the back behind me is newly painted. It looks beautiful. Especially that black tape that looks like a frame around the live stream there. That's beautiful. Looks really good. Fantastic. So excellent job, Mr. Waffle and team. Okay. And only one can of paint over the head. It wasn't too bad. Okay. So excellent job. We appreciate it. We're looking forward to how that'll work then on Shabbat. So what we're going to do tonight is we're going to go through the weekly Torah portion, Chayei, which is going to be going through Genesis 23:1 through 25:18. Okay, so it's not too many chapters, but we do have, we got two choices. We'll see how many people get up here to read. I could either do 5 or 9, so we'll see. I've got it broken up 2 different ways. I guess different years I did it differently, so we could either do 5 readers or 9 readers, depending on how short we want the verse readings to be, either 9 or 10 verses or more like 15 to 18 verses. So we'll see how that goes, depending on how many people want to read. So if you're on the live stream, so what we're going to do is we'll take up some prayer needs first, then we'll read the Torah portion. I'll have a couple of quick announcements probably mixed in there, and then we'll discuss what we read. So if you're following along at home or here, you might want to have a pen or something to write with and something to write on and take some notes. There may be some verses that you have a question about, maybe something that you want to make a comment about. And so we do encourage you to do that because we will be taking comments and questions at the end. Okay. All right. So as we're journeying here through Genesis, and we're just plugging right along, we're real excited here to go through this section. So let's begin, though, with prayer time. And Steve Waffle's got the mic, so if you have a prayer need, you can raise your hand, and he'll come around with the mic. If you're online, like I said, Rob and Manny will take care of noting your requests. Kathy.
Shalom, Rabbi.
Shalom.
I'm asking for a special prayer request for Lynn, who had a major neck surgery, and she's having trouble getting the pain under control. Started good, and she realizes that now, but she really has put requests on live stream and stuff, and so we really need to pray for her to have also the patience. Yahweh has her, down, but she's doing everything she can, and the doctor re-x-rayed it. There's no nerve compression. Everything looks good. It's just things that were crunched have now been stretched, and they are not happy.
Yeah, it's an adjustment. Yeah, they have the muscle spasming and Charlie horses and everything as things are being released.
And ligaments and fascia,
Yep.
no blood supply there. So please pray for her. Thank you.
Awesome. Okay, we certainly can do that. And a lot of this is just going to be time, because if that really is just the simplicity of the problem, is being those things that were locked into one position for so long and now they're being able to get freed of that, it does take a little while and it is painful, but it will subside. So hopefully that's all it is. I'm not minimizing. I mean, obviously it could be very painful, but it can certainly be at least something that, encouraging-wise, knowing that time will definitely take care of that. It's just being able to get through it during that time could be a little challenge. It could take a little while. Okay, May, go ahead.
Shalom.
Shalom.
I don't know if I can do this. I've had a sister in a nursing home for some time, and she's on her last breath. So I would like for our Mishkapa to pray for the family. She's not been in any pain. If you would just send your prayers up for the family, I'd appreciate it.
Amen, certainly. Okay, Shira?
It's really good to be here. I'm having a good day. I've had off and on vertigo and migraines for past 6 weeks or 7 weeks. And I'm pretty convinced now that it is a chiropractic issue. And as much as I would love to go to a chiropractor, I just found out that I lost my Medicaid. So Father is in control of all of that, and I just praise him, because having lost Medicaid, I'm now free to make money without having to worry about losing anything. So there's always a silver lining. But I also want to praise Father, my older brother, who has been listening to Jerry Falwell for many years, and the last conversation I had with him was a couple of years ago, in which he pretty much ended the relationship, believing that I'm going to hell. But I got a call from him yesterday, and it was very friendly. And he is very interested in checking out our website at MTOI. So
Fantastic. Awesome. Okay, Wayne. And look, by the way, let me just say this with what Shira said. Remember that we all hold, well, I shouldn't say that. Most of us, I'm hoping, hold Rav Shaul in fairly high esteem. Remember, he was one that was very violently against what the new believers, so to speak, were believing. And so if you have family members that are fairly violently strong against it, they can have their sort of moment where they'll get the clarity of thought. So don't just think of somebody in your family is extremely negative about this stuff, that means that there's no chance for them coming around, because that's one of the reasons we have Paul in the scripture, to see there was somebody who was extremely against what was going on and ended up being one of the strongest advocates for it. So just be encouraged by that, and also by Shira's testimony that now a brother who was basically not even talking to her had a very, at least, hey, like, that's a good start, a friendly conversation, right? Okay, Wayne?
Yeah, I just want to ask for a continued prayer on trying to find a job. And also I want to praise the Father. During this time, he has provided everything that we need for our family, rent, food, everything, during this time. So I have no worries or anything, and I just have full faith in the Father that he'll open a door at the right time.
Amen. Amen. Okay. Rabbi Tom?
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I would like to ask everyone to pray for a man most of you don't know, Kenny Posey. This Thursday, Joanna's going to take me to the VA Satellite Clinic in Chattanooga, and I told Ken that we'd drop in and visit him after that. When
Is
I
that
get
where he
off
is?
work.
Is that the VA?
Pardon me?
Is that where he is, or are you going to go visit him?
Yeah, he lives in
He
Chattanooga.
lives in that area, okay.
And so after we get out of the clinic, we're going to go visit him briefly. And he's quite a challenge sometimes to visit because of his speech impediment.
Yeah. All right, amen. Look, the difficult people, and sometimes people are difficult not because they're being difficult, just that, in this particular case, he has a challenge vocally, and it's really hard to understand what he says. And I appreciate that he ended up in a good relationship with you so that you were able to pick up, because I couldn't understand him well enough to be helpful to him on the phone, whereas you were able to do better than that. So that's how Abba works it out. I mean, I was just really challenged to... You get about 70%. Well, that's more than I was getting, so that's good. Now, I'm not picking on him. He has a speech problem and a vocal problem, and so it's hard. But you know what? He's following along, and he does try to stay connected. And okay, so he's going to have some surgery on his back and shoulder, and that we can keep that in prayer as well. Okay, who's next? Okay, Sarah Beth.
Just wanted to give praise. My car had an issue this week, which just happened to disappear and go away. What is a praise? I have my car back. But just praise for the family. I had people fighting over me who was going to give me a ride where, and it was just so different from being out alone and trying to figure out how to deal with stuff on my own. And I just had family and never had to worry about how I was going to get anywhere.
Awesome. Amen. And I guess if it was going to die and my driveway was as good a place as any, right? So, well, we're praying that it was just something that was just went away and it won't come back. And it, All right, Mr. Rick.
Yeah, I got a praise request and praise report and a prayer request. I got a phone call about a half hour ago from Kevin Shutt. Didn't expect to hear his voice. Hadn't heard from him in a while, other than his wife just text messaging. He's in ICU at Hershey Medical Center, but he's doing well, he said, and he's getting dialysis 3 times a week. That will be pretty much a permanent situation, but he was in great spirits. So that was just encouraging to hear that. So prayer for the family and everything there as things proceed. And prayer request, I don't know what's going on with our water heater, but my wife tried to draw some hot water a bit ago, and we have no hot water. So I'm hoping it's a simple fix, or at least an inexpensive one anyway. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Waffle didn't think so as he shook his head.
New water heater is like $500.
Yeah. All right.
And by the way, that was a temporary dye job.
Oh, it was a temporary dye job, the can of paint over the head. There are actually easier, less violent ways to do that in the future, just so you know. And if you are going to do that in the future, please film it. I really wish I could have seen it. Okay, and by the way, look, keep this in prayer, and this is really not something that needs prayer so much, but as far as just my having enough time in the near future to put together the new financial, whatever we want to call it, financial success program, because we should not, I guess is the way I want to phrase it, we should not be worried about a $500 thing messing us up. It does, because we've not gotten ourselves where we need to be financially, and I understand that. But if we can get things going and plan for things and have emergency funds like we should and all these other things, then while inconvenient and undesired, a $500 problem won't create an undue stress, okay? Whereas if you don't have anything, look, the average American cannot put together, if they needed to in an emergency, $1,000, okay? That's like the vast majority of America, and that's a pretty scary thing, because a lot of the things that can go wrong can cost you just around that or a little bit more, especially if you're talking about your car or something like your water heater and other things like that. I mean, major appliances and other things like that, a roof, whatever, it can cost you more than that. So I am planning to spend some time here, between now and the end of the year, to have something for next year, so after January we can start another finance class and talk about those things. For those of you on live stream, we are going to try to film these things. All right? Even if we don't stream them, I don't know if we will stream them, but at least we'll film them. I'm also going to be doing some basic Hebrew Aleph Bet classes for the teenagers and the children, and so we'll see what we can do for the adults. I know for the adults as well. starting here very soon with the teachers at the academy to get them up to speed so that we can very quickly get our children at least to read Hebrew, even if they don't know what they're reading yet, but at least from comprehension point of view, at least they can read it. So we're going to teach the basic Aleph Bet and the sounds and the vowels and all those things. All right. Live stream.
Okay, from Shirley Akpalu, healing for everyone who trusts in Messiah, employment for all who seek with divine help the Most High, and unspoken prayers. Lady Di, prayers for daughter-in-law's mother who needs emergency surgery. Guide the doctor's hand and let her recovery be good. Evangeline Agalasso, blessings for my brother to see the truth, for it's his birthday today. Unspoken prayers for me. Olivia and Janet Hoffman, prayer for wisdom and discernment. We thank the Almighty. Unspoken from Janet, thanks. Lisa Hersey, prayers for MTOI staff to be strengthened and wisdom for Rabbi and all concerned. Walk softly. Could we lift in prayer those who are suffering with addiction, as someone on the MTOI page mentioned a family who lost a child to overdose on opioids. Tracy Waymeyer, my surgery, neck surgery is a week from this Sunday, and all that's involved during and after. Linda DeHaven, I'm consulting with a surgeon tomorrow for a parathyroidectomy. Hope to have significant relief from years-long fatigue and other symptoms. Rely on Yah for everything concerning this. From Anonymous Mom, prayer request, Al interviewed for a job today. Please pray that if it's Yahweh's will, he gets the job. And just one for me, Tamara was doing some assessment on my ears because she had a test. She saw something in one of my arteries or something, so she took a video of it, sent it to the doctor today, and right when I got into Cleveland or Chattanooga, the doctor had told her that I need to go see a specialist like immediately because that's not a good sign, whatever it was doing. So prayer for that. I want to go see somebody tomorrow.
All right, we can certainly do that. I mean, it's kind of helpful to have a wife studying nursing, because if there really is a situation there and she was able to catch it in a good, timely manner, that's a big blessing to have. All right, so we're glad for that. Anything else? That's it? All right. Okay, so let's add, of course, all the people that have asked us for prayer since the last time we've gotten together, so that would be since Shabbat. And I want to praise Yah because I was probably going to call Rabbi Tom today and ask him to do tonight's study because I was not feeling good at all last night. When I say that, I don't know that I would say that I was under the weather particularly. Forget the cough, but I mean, I wasn't under the weather particularly. I just felt generally not well and just, I don't know, just tired and just worn out and whatever. And I had people telling me, even though I had a good amount of sleep yesterday, that I didn't know. I had an appointment yesterday. Someone said, "Are you going to the doctor?" I said, "No." They said, "Well, because you look like that's probably where you need to go." So I guess I didn't look any better than I felt to some degree, but I got a good night's sleep, feel a lot better, so I'm here. And so I would say I feel about 95% or so I'm feeling pretty good. But it's that time of year where the weather changes great amounts of degrees. It kind of messes with my equilibrium as far as the balance, and the body wants to be in homeostasis and balance things out. And I just, when the weather changes, it stays cold, I'm great. Stays hot, I'm great. But when it does these 40, 50 degree changes in the day, it kind of messes with me a little bit. So, but I'm feeling good today, which is good. And also the sleep. For those of you that have been following along, I've been getting lots of low numbers, like 0.1 events per hour. Last night I've had a 0 on Saturday, which is good. And I'm going actually to see my sleep doctor on Thursday just to have a follow-up, so that's pretty good. It's probably going to have to wait till January when I can get the full insurance. Okay. My retired nurse, who likes to give me a lot of proper grief about getting certain tests done and everything else, it's a good question. I was only able to get a temporary insurance because you had to have the CPAP or BiPAP for over a year before they would give you insurance. So I have, in case something goes wrong, but to go get the tests and everything done, I will probably have to wait till I could, but I mean, I'm just saying, so just so you know, I will have the full insurance starting after I've had the CPAP a year. So that'll be January or so. So anyway, so that was a private discussion you guys didn't need to be involved in. No, it's good to have people that care about you enough to be on your case and say you need to get certain tests done, based on the things that have been going on and all these other things. So, and I plan to do that, and we are actually in the process of getting that stuff done. But it also works out a lot better if you have insurance, and the insurance can pay for it, and those kind of things. So, All right. Okay, so also, let's see, there were some other things I wanted to pray about, and I got to remember what else I wanted to throw in there. No, I think that'll cover it for right now. We'll leave it at that. Okay, then did we lose the internet or anything? Okay, I get to hear myself in an echo then. Okay, so let's go ahead. See, I just said, okay, so over there, and I said it over here. Ooh. All right. I think we'll also add in some quick announcements as part of our prayer time before we pray. We do have people traveling here next week for Thanksgiving. Okay, that'll be sometime right next, isn't it like a week from Thursday? So, for those of you that are going to come here to celebrate with us, if you're on the cameras here, if you're on the live stream and you plan to be here, please let us know so we can plan for you to be here. Okay? Everybody else, you should be signed up for, what you're going to be bringing and how that's going to all work out. And so that should be just fine. Okay. So let's have somebody go ahead and raise their hand. We'll start with prayer, and we'll open the service with prayer. And pass the mic straight back to Rick. We'll let him open us up.
Abba, Father, we humbly come before you and thanking you for this time together to study your word, to study your Torah. May we learn things we haven't seen before and learn how to walk them out in our lives, to serve you, to honor you, and to make you proud of us as servants. And all these things we ask in Yeshua's name. And we also ask for all the prayer requests. You know them all, even the silent, unspoken ones. Father, we present those before you. We know you hear all our prayers and that you'll answer them according to your will and your time. So bless us during this time of study. May we take what we learn and apply it to our lives. And we ask this in Yeshua's name. Amen.
Amen. Amen. I just remembered one other one, and so we'll just add that in, and it'll just be tied into what Rick said, and that is that we are going to a studio on Monday to do some interviews for recording the new MTOI Praise Team album. And so pray that goes well as we end up connecting well with the person, because it's a different studio than we use for Brianna's CD. So we're going to be going up there on Monday and checking it out. So let's pray that goes well. And I also want to praise Abba. My daughter has wanted a voice coach, since you can remember. And so we looked around and we found one, and it didn't go well. We actually canceled before we had the first lesson, just didn't feel like it resonated right. Got online and just found somebody online who's up in the Nashville area, and she's loving the relationship. Found this, to see the lady who's coaching her is almost like looking at Brianna 10 years from now. They're like two peas in a pod, and I got to hear her do the lesson a little bit today, which listening to a voice lesson can be very interesting, the sounds that come out of the room, as the voice coach makes her do all kinds of and all kinds of weird noises and stuff. But she's doing great, and she's taking it seriously. She practices every day, so, watch out. She's going to start getting that training she needs. Okay, so anyway. So we're really excited that Abba worked it out, that we didn't have to go through many of them to find a good one, and this one seems to be a good one. And oh yeah, the existing CD. I forgot we're not on Saturday. We can mention that. Yeah, Brianna's CD is more than half full. How much do we have it on now for? For $5. Wow. You want the CD? That's probably going to cost us almost as much to ship it to you. So, we want to just go ahead and get those out there. We have a bunch still in supply. So if anybody wants the CD, it's $5. Limited time sale. Limited till we run out. Okay, limited time sale. Okay, see, we can go ahead and get those out there. All right, so this week's Torah portion is Chayei Sarah. What's that mean? The life of Sarah, which is kind of ironic because she ends up dying in this chapter. But But it starts off with the phrase, and she lived 127 years. So, but it is called Life of Sarah. So this is not the story of Sarah. It's just the Hebraic way of naming things is to take a key phrase or point right in the very first sentence of a section. It's the way they name books as well. So that's why this book is called Bereshit, because the first word in the scriptures of this book is Bereshit. Okay? And so that's why we'll find that the next one is not called Exodus, but it's called Shemot, because the first main term there is the names. Okay, so Shemot are names. All right, so here, this Torah portion starts off with, and Sarah lived, so it's called Chayei Sarah. It goes from Genesis or Bereshit 23:1 to 25:18. Now, depending on how many of you come and sit, I either have 5 or 9 readings. Let's see what we got seating in the chairs. Well, it looks like 9, because a lot of people are getting up. Okay, so we'll go with 9. Because there's 7 of them right there, and then plus 8 and 9. Okay, there we go. Excellent. So we'll have 9 right there, worked out. All right. So the way this works is I'll call up each person one at a time, say a blessing over them, and then tell them what verses they're going to read, and where you start and where you finished. And then we'll go from reader to reader till we finish. Then we'll have a closing traditional blessing over the Torah portions, and then we'll go into the discussion portion. Would you like to go first or last? Doesn't matter. Come on up. We'll start with you. Right there's good. 1 through 9. He who blessed our fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, may he bless Rabbi Tom, who's come up to honor Yahweh in the Torah. May the set apart one bless him and his family and send blessing and prosperity on all the works of his hands. Amen. Okay, you're going to start in chapter 23 and read verses 1 through 9.
And Sarah lived 127 years, the years of the life of Sarah. And Sarah died in Kiriath Arba, that is Hebron, in the land of Canaan. And Abraham came to mourn for Sarah and to weep for her. Then Abraham rose up from beside his dead and spoke to the sons of Heth, saying, I am a foreigner and a sojourner among you. Give me property for a burial site among you, so that I bury my dead from my presence. And the sons of Heth answered Avram, and saying to him, Hear us, my master, you are a prince of Elohim among us. Bury your dead in the choicest of our burial sites. None of us withholds his burial site from burying your dead. So Abraham rose and bowed himself to the people of the land, the sons of Heth. And he spoke with them, saying, If it is your desire that I bury my dead from my presence, hear me and approach Ephron, son of Zohar, for me. And let me have the cave of Machpelah, which he has, which is at the end of his field. Let him give it to me for the complete amount of silver, as property for a burial site among you.
Amen, amen. Okay, thank you, Rabbi Tom. Okay, next up we have Charles. All right, he who blessed our fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, may he bless Charles, who's come up to honor Yahweh in the Torah. May the set apart one bless him and his family and send blessing and prosperity on all the works of his hands. Amen. Okay, take us now from verse 10 to the end of the chapter.
And Ephron dwelt among the sons of Heth, and Ephron the Hittite answered Abraham. And in the hearing of the sons of Heth, all who entered at the gate of his city, saying, No, my master, listen to me. I shall give you the field and the calf that is in it. I shall give it to you in the presence of the sons of my people. And I shall give it to you, bury your dead. And Abram bowed himself down before the people of the land. And he spoke to Ephron in the hearing of the people of the land, saying, If only you would hear me, I shall give the amount of silver for the field, and take it from me, and let me bury my dead there. And Ephron answered Abram, and saying to him, My master, listen to me. The land is worth 400 shekels of silver. What is that between you and me? So bury your dead. And Abram listened to Ephron, and Abram weighed out the silver for Ephron, which he had named in the hearing of the sons of Heth, 400 shekels of silver, currency of the merchants. Thus the field of Ephron, which is in Machpehal, which was before Mamre, the field of the calf which was in it, and the trees that were in the field, which were within all the surrounding borders, were deeded to Abraham as a possession in the presence of the sons of Heth, before all who went in the gate of his own city, of his city. After this, Abraham buried Sarah, his wife, in the cave of the field of Machpehal, before Mamre, that is Hebron, and the land of Canaan. Thus the field and the calf that is in it were deeded to Abraham by the sons of Heth as property for a burial site.
Amen. All right, Shira. He who blessed our fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, may he bless Shira, who's come up to honor Yahweh in the Torah. May the set-apart one bless her and her family and send blessing and prosperity on all the works of her hands. Amen. Okay, Shira, take us into chapter 24 and read verses 1 through 10.
And Abraham was old, advanced in years, and Yahweh had blessed Abraham in every way. And Abraham said to the oldest servant of his house, who ruled over all that he had, Please put your hand under my thigh, so that I make you swear by Yahweh, the Elohim of the heavens and the Elohim of the earth, that you do not take a wife for my son from the daughters of the Canaanites, among whom I dwell, but to go to my land and to my relatives and take a wife for my son Yitzchak. And the servant said to him, What if the woman refuses to follow me to this land? Do I then take your son back to the land from which you came? And Abraham said to him, Beware lest you take my son back there. Yahweh, Elohim of the heavens, who took me from my father's house and from the land of my relatives, and who spoke to me and swore to me, saying, To your seed I give this land. He sends his messenger before you, and you shall take a wife for my son from there. And if the woman refuses to follow you, then you shall be released from this oath. Only do not take my son back there. Then the servant put his hand under the thigh of Abraham his master, and swore to him concerning this matter. And the servant took 10 of his master's camels and left, for all his master's good gifts were in his hand. And he arose and went to Aram Naharaim, to the city of Nahor.
Amen. Amen. Okay, Wayne. He who blessed our fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, may he bless Wayne, who's come up to honor Yahweh in the Torah. May the set-apart one bless him and his family and send blessing and prosperity in all the works of his hands. Amen. Okay, Wayne, take us from verse 11 to 21.
And he made his camels kneel down outside the city by a fountain of water at evening time, the time when women go out to draw water. And he said, Yahweh, Elohim of my master, Abraham, please cause her to meet before me this day and show loving commitment to my master Abraham. See, I am standing here by the fountain of water, and the daughters of the men of the city are coming out to draw water. Now let it be that the young woman to whom I say, Please let down your jar to let me drink, and she says, Drink, and let me water your camels too. Let her be the one whom you have appointed for your servant Yitzchak. And let me know by this that you have shown loving commitment to my master. And it came to be, before he had ended speaking, that Rachel, who was born to Bethuel, son of Milcah, the wife of Nahor, Abraham's brother, came out with her jar on her shoulder. And the young woman was very good-looking, a maiden, no man having known her. And she went down to the fountain and filled her jar and came up. And the servant ran to meet her and said, "Please let me drink a little water from your jar." And she said, "Drink, my master." And she hurried and let her jar go down to her hand and gave him a drink. And when she had finished giving him a drink, she said, "Let me draw water for your camels too," until they had finished drinking. And she hurried and emptied her jar into the trough, ran back to the fountain to draw water, and drew from all his camels. And watching her, the man remained silent in order to know whether Yahweh had prospered his way or not.
Amen. Thank you, Wayne. Okay, Sarah Beth. You blessed our fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. May he bless Sarah Beth, who's come up to honor Yahweh in the Torah. May the set apart one bless her and her family and send blessing and prosperity in all the works of her hands. Amen. Okay, from verse 22 to 33.
And it came to be, when the camels had finished drinking, that the man took a gold nose ring weighing 1/2 shekel, and 2 bracelets for her wrists weighing 10 shekels of gold, and said, "Whose daughter are you? Please inform me. Is there room in your father's house for us to spend the night?" And she said to him, "I am the daughter of Bethuel, Milcah's son, whom she bore to Nahor." And she said to him, "We have both straw and fodder enough, and room to spend the night." And the man bowed down his head and worshipped Yahweh. And he said, "Blessed be Yahweh, Elohim of my master Abraham, who has not forsaken his kindness and his truth toward my master. As for me, being on the way, Yahweh led me to the house of my master's brothers." Then the young woman ran and informed those of her mother's house these matters. And Rivkah had a brother whose name was Lavan, and Lavan ran out to the man to the fountain. And it came to be, when he saw the nose ring and the bracelets on his sister's wrists, and when he heard the words of his sister Rivkah, saying, "Thus the man spoke to me," that he went to the man and saw him standing by the camels at the fountain. And he said, "Come in, O blessed of Yahweh. Why do you stand outside? I myself have prepared the house and a place for the camels." So the man came into the house, while he unloaded the camels and provided straw and fodder for the camels and water to wash his feet and the feet of the men who were with him, and set food before him to eat. But he said, "Let me not eat until I have spoken my word." And he said, "Speak on."
Amen. Amen. All right, Rick. He who blessed our fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, may he bless Rick, who's come up to honor Yahweh in the Torah. May the set-apart one bless him and his family and send blessing and prosperity on all the works of his hands. Amen. It'll go take us now from 34 to 44.
And he said, "I am Abraham's servant. And Yahweh has blessed my master exceedingly, and he has become great. And he has given him flocks and herds and silver and gold, and male and female servants, and camels and donkeys. And Sarah, my master's wife, bore a son to my master when she was old, and he has given to him all that he has. And my master made me swear, saying, 'Do not take a wife for my son from the daughter of the Canaanites, in whose land I dwell, but go to my father's house and to my relatives, and take a wife for my son.' And I said to my master, 'What if the woman does not follow me?' But he said to me, 'Yahweh, before whom I walk, sends his messenger with you, and shall prosper your way. And you shall take a wife for my son from the relatives and from my father's house. Then when you go to my relatives, you are to be released from this oath. And if they do not give her to you, then you are released from my oath.' And this day I came to the fountain and said, 'Yahweh, Elohim of my master Abraham, Please, if you are prospering the way in which I am going, see, I am standing by the fountain of water. And when the young woman comes out to draw water, and I say to her, please give me a little water from your jar to drink. And she says to me, drink, and let me draw for your camels too. Let her be the woman whom Yahweh has appointed for my master's son.
Amen. Amen. Okay. Shannon? He who blessed our fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, may he bless Shannon who has come up down to Yahweh in the Torah. May the set apart one bless her and her family and send blessing and prosperity on all the works of her hands. Amen. Okay, you're going to take us now from verse 45 to verse 54.
I had not yet ended speaking my heart. Then see, Ribkah was coming out with her jar on her shoulder, and she went down to the fountain and drew water. And I said to her, please let me drink. And she hurried and let her jar down from her shoulder and said, drink, and let me water your camels too. So I drank, and she watered the camels too. And I asked her and said, whose daughter are you? And she said, the daughter of Bethuel, Nahor's son, whom Milcah born to him. Then I put the nose ring on her nose and the bracelets on her wrists, and I bowed my head and worshipped Yahweh and blessed Yahweh, Elohim of my master Abraham, who led me in the true way to take the daughter of my master's brother for his son. And now if you are going to show loving commitment and truth to my master, let me know. If not, let me know, and if not, let me know, so that I turn to the right or to the left. And Laban answered, Bethuel too, and said, the matter comes from Yahweh, and we are not able to speak to you either evil or good. See, Ribkah is before you. Take her and go and let her be your master's son's wife, as Yahweh had spoken. And it came to be when Abraham's servant heard their words, that he bowed himself towards the earth before Yahweh. And the servant brought out ornaments of silver and ornaments of gold and garments and gave them to Rebekah. He also gave costly gifts to her brother and to her mother. And he and the men who were with him ate and drank and spent the night. Then they arose in the morning, and he said, let me go to my master. But her brother and her mother said, that was it. 54. Sorry.
No problem. Awesome. Okay, we got two more readers here. Michael? He who blessed our fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, may he bless Michael, who's come up down to Yahweh in the Torah. May the set apart one bless him and his family and send blessing and prosperity on all the works of his hands. Amen. Okay, you're going to take us from verse 55 to the end of the chapter.
But her brother and her mother said, let the young woman stay with us a few days, at least 10, then you go. And he said to them, do not delay me, since Yahweh has prospered my way. Let me go so that I go to my master. And they said, let us call the young woman and ask her. So they called Rebekah and said to her, are you going with this man? And she said, I shall go. So they let go Rebekah, their sister, and her nurse, and Abraham's servant, and his men. And they blessed Rebekah and said to her, let our sister become the mother of thousands of 10,000s, and let your seed possesses the gates of those who hate them. And Rebekah and her young women arose, and they rode on the camel and followed the man. So the servant took Rebekah and left. And Yitzchak came from the way of Beer Lahai Roi, for he dwelt in the south. And Yitzchak went out to mediate in the field in the evening. And he lifted his eyes and looked and saw the camels coming. And Rebekah lifted her eyes, and when she saw Yitzchak, she dismounted from her camel. And she said to the servant, who is this man walking in the field to meet us? And the servant said, it is my master. So she took a veil and covered herself. And the servant told Yishka all the matters he had done. And Yishka brought her into his mother's, Sarah's tent. And he took Rebekah, and she became his wife, and he loved her. Thus Yishka was comforted after his mother's death.
Amen. Amen. And you got the names. She's thinking, why didn't you let me go first? Let Rabbi Tom go last. He who blessed our fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, he blessed May, who's come up down to Yahweh in the Torah. May the set apart one bless her and her family and send blessings and prosperity in all the works of her hands. Amen. And give her the power of speech to read these names.
I'm learning.
Amen. Verses 1 to 18.
And Abraham took another wife who was Keturah, and she bore him Zimran, and Yokshan, and Medan, and Midian, and Yishbak, and Shua. And Yokshan brought forth Sheba and Dedan. And the sons of Dedan were Asherim, and Lecherim, and Leuman. And the sons of Midian were Epith, and Epher, and Hanok, and Abida, and Eldaha. And all these children of Keturah. Now Abraham gave all that he had to Yitzhak. So to the sons of the concubines whom Abraham had, Abraham gave gifts while he was still living, and sent them away from his son Yitzhak eastward to the land of the east. And these are all the years of Abraham's life which he lived, 175 years. And Abraham breathed his last and died in a good old age, aged and satisfied, and was gathered to his people. And his sons Yitzhak and Ishmael buried him in the cave at Machpelah, which is before Mamre, in the field of Ephron, son of Seor the Hittite, the field which Abraham purchased from the sons of Heth. There Abraham was buried with Sarah his wife. And it became to be, after the death of Abraham, that Elohim blessed his son Yitzhak, and Yitzhak dwelt at Beer Lahai Roi. And this is the genealogy of Ishmael, Abraham's son, whom Hagar, the Mitzrayim, Sarah's female servant, bore to Abraham. And these were the names of the sons of Ishmael by their names, according to their generations. The firstborn of Ishmael, Nebaioth, then Kedar, then Adabiel, and Mitzam, and Mishma, and Duma, and Massa, Hadar, and Tema, Yetor, Napshis, and Kedemah. These were the names of the sons of Ishmael, and these were their names, by their towns and their settlements, 12 chiefs according to their tribes. And these were the years of the life of Ishmael, 137 years. And he breathed his last and died, and was gathered to his people. And they dwelt from Havilah as far as Shur, which is east of Mitzrayim, as you go towards Ashur. He settled before all his brothers.
Amen. All right, great job. Excellent job. She said, I need those Hebrew classes. Amen to that. Okay, give me 1 second here. We got to start with what? You can start with the children's level. I was going to start you with grammar and sentence structure. Let the children start on the alphabet, okay? All right. I want you to learn first the past pluperfect and all those other things that nobody ever really learned in high school. Okay. The traditional blessing after the Torah reading. Let me pull out my sheet. Here we go. Baruch atah Yahweh Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu torat emet v'chayei olam natah betochenu. Baruch atah Yahweh noten haTorah. Amen. Blessed are you, Yahweh our Elohim, King of the universe, who has given us a Torah of truth and has planted eternal life in our midst. Blessed are you, Yahweh, giver of the Torah. Amen. And I need the mic stand. There we go. All right. So first of all, I hope everybody noticed that while we did give May the most difficult, we also gave her a double portion. She did 18 verses, where everybody else did about 9 or 10. See, so we gave you the double blessing there. And we also gave you the double challenge. That's how, see, that works out. Okay. All right. You know what I did? I left, where's the other paper? 1, 2, because I took notes today, as always, but extra ones more than usual because I didn't have any for this week's Torah portion. I don't know where my notes went from the past, but I think this is like one of those strange things where year after year I didn't do this portion. I always had Rabbi Tom or somebody else do it because it just happened to be when I would be under the weather out of town or something. So it's interesting how that works out. There are certain Torah portions that I look at and go, how come I don't have any notes for that, for doing it for previous years? And it seems like it's only the same one over and over again. It almost was again this year. I almost called Rabbi Tom to do this one. Okay, but I'm glad I was here. All right, quick reminder. So we do have our family Thanksgiving on Thursday this coming week, and also Rosh Chodesh. Okay, we're going to do that at about 6 o'clock. We'll be live streaming that, okay, for Kislev. All right, so we have Rosh Chodesh service. And then, of course, we have, for those of you that are on the live stream, we do meet every Saturday at 1 o'clock Eastern Time. The services start at 1:15, and we do live stream the service. Okay, so the live stream should start around 1 o'clock, and then we will actually start the actual service about 1:15. All right, so what we're going to do now is go ahead and discuss the Torah portion. So if you have a comment or a question, you can raise your hand here locally. If you're on the live stream, Manny and Rob Wyatt have that ready to go. Again, this is not an opportunity to get on the soapbox and become the teacher in the live stream. Please respect their authority in the room. They may decide to answer some of the questions you pop up that may not be specifically about this Torah portion by pointing you towards a teaching. Okay, and that's okay, because that's probably the best thing for you is to know what teaching would cover the questions that you're asking. All right, so who wants to get us started here in the room? Mr. Steve Waffle.
All right, okay. Let's see, this is what I got out of chapter 23. It said, Abraham wouldn't take what was offered free without offering proper payment. So I had a couple of thoughts after that, and it's how many of us take, and run thinking we were blessed by receiving something we should have paid for free? Is it truly a blessing to take what we should have paid for free, or is it a case of selfishness?
Okay, anybody else have any similar or different take on that? I do. Okay, let me raise my hand. Okay, but you don't have to bring me the mic. Okay, so I can definitely see where you get that out of it. I also want to point out, if you look at the story, the account of what happened, I think that it's pretty clear that Abraham wanted it to be absolutely clear and publicly clear. He brought witnesses, he brought other people around. He wanted to make sure that people knew that he had purchased this. Because there had been, and you know there had been, and there will be in the future with Jacob and others, disputes over things like wells and territory and other things. And he wanted to make sure that there would be no reason for anybody to lie, that the payment was made, it was done in front of the elders and the witnesses. And it wasn't just anybody, it was the people, the men from the gates, so to speak. These are the leadership of the land, that Abraham did the right thing. Now bear in mind, he was recognized in verse 6 as a prince of Elohim, no less. Okay, so this is a impressive and to maybe other people an imposing figure. He had a lot of people with him. He was very wealthy, he was very successful, and so we didn't want to create, or Abraham didn't want to create, any kind of an animosity or problem saying, well, yeah, we gave it to him because he made us and we were afraid of him and whatever. So while Steve's not wrong, I mean, certainly we should be, aware of those things, but also recognize that if something is being given, before it comes and bites you, where, you might want to say that some things for free are not worth getting them for free. That's the other side of the coin. Because it will be held against you, used against you, or some other thing. And I think that's what he was concerned about. He was like, no, I don't think so. Tell you what, get all the people around. Let's have witnesses to this transaction so that it's written down, it's witnessed, and everybody knows how much and he didn't set the price. He let the other guy set the price. He said, no problem. Now, bear in mind, he was only able to do this because he was wealthy. Right? Now, he was wealthy not just because Elohim blessed him, although that was certainly part of it, but because he was doing the things that brought wealth. He was a hard worker. He took care of those who were hard workers, and he was obedient, which brings blessing. So all of those things combined brought him to a place where he could afford, without any issue, to buy a plot of land so that he could bury his wife. And the plot of land would also be where he could bury other members of the family at some point, because this was now the burial site that he had purchased. Okay? So I think that's a really important thing. But also notice that they recognized him as a prince. He didn't just walk and go, well, I'm a prince, I mean, they're the ones who, when they're talking to him, they say, we know that you are a prince. So they have observed. People are paying, we know that people are paying attention to what we're doing. We know people are watching us. You're being watched. Right? Okay? But it says that, let's see. Where's the verse I'm looking for? Oh, verse 6. Right, hear us, my master, you are a prince of Elohim among us. They recognized that he was of Elohim. In other words, they'd see the blessings, the protection, the interventions, whatever the things were happening, they saw you are a man of God. But not just a man, you're a prince of Elohim. So would people be able to look at you and see that you are at least a man of Elohim or a woman of Elohim? But also then recognizing the blessings that come from the obedience. The obedience combined, though, with the hard work. Okay, and that's really the important thing. And so then he was willing and able to pay full price. Now, bear in mind, for what Steve said, yes, there are things that we may do because we're of a mindset to get, not to give. So we may get distracted from danger, warnings of, you probably shouldn't take this for free, it's going to blow up in your face. Okay? Because all you're thinking is like, wow, how great. 400 shekels that I saved because I didn't have to buy the land. Only to have it blow up in your face. All right? So, be careful with that. Because that could be really a thing. Now, on the other side of it, I'm going to give everybody a bit of advice, okay? And this is something that I've learned over the years, and you may already do this, but, let's be careful, though, on the other side of it, that if somebody wishes to bless you, that you're able to bless them by receiving. Because some people out there are really brutal to help and bless. Because you can't give to them. Because there's too much pride or something else going on. So, if you really don't, if you're concerned, we'll say it that way. If you're concerned that the person offering is doing it because they feel obligated, then there's nothing wrong with at least just once, and only once, saying, that's not necessary. I can take care of this. Okay? I've had people offer to buy me a meal when we were all sitting together saying, hey, I'm going to pay for that. And I'll say, no, that's okay. It's okay. I can. And if they insist, then I very graciously say thank you. And I hope to receive the same whenever I do that for someone, because it spoils the blessing if I try to do something for you and you won't take it. Because then you're stealing the blessing. Okay, and just recognize that, because you're thinking, oh, but I don't want them to think that I need or whatever. Don't worry about that. They're trying to bless you. Now, if you want to communicate that you don't need, then say it just once, saying, that's okay, I got it. No, I appreciate that. But still say you appreciate, hey, thanks, I appreciate it, but I can take care of this. And if they say, no, I want to do this, then let them. And don't look like you're sucking on a pickle. Smile and thank them. Okay. Well, don't pay for me. I can pay for myself. All right? But the other side of it, sort of Steve's side of it, is don't show up someplace knowing, hoping, or expecting for the wealthier person to pay for you. Okay? I find it incredible, and I don't think it's anybody in this room has ever done this, but we have gone out many a time, my wife and I, or just myself, and we as ministry get looked at by others like we're supposed to pay for them. I'm not kidding you. There's an Now, I don't go out, by the way, as ministry expecting anybody to pay for me. I'm always pleasantly, welcoming it if it happens, and I always tell them, hey, it's no problem, we don't need that, but if they insist, that's great. But I don't get why you would expect ministry who should have your tithe money to use your tithe money to buy you a meal. Okay? Or me as ministry, why, I don't understand why you would do that. Okay? That doesn't mean that I'll never want to buy one for people. I do this all the time. But you shouldn't be there with the expectation of somebody else taking care of you. If you need help, you should ask for it. That's the humbling process. And there's no shame in that. If you need help, ask. You can get help. We're very happy to help often. And other people would often be happy to help you. Hey, I'd like to go out. I know everybody's going out, but I really, can't afford that. You think you can help me just get some fries or something or whatever. And often people might help you with that. But also you should be desiring to be the one able to do that for someone else instead of being on the receiving end all the time and trying to get your life in order so you can be on the other side of that. And that's part of where we're going to have the classes. All right, so hopefully that covered that whole subject, fairly, thoroughly there because, on the one hand, you should be able to, take care of yourself, but if you can't, you should be able to thank people and appreciate that. And even if you can take care of yourself, if somebody wants to bless you, why wouldn't you let them bless you? But I think and I always do this, I think it's fair to say, hey, you don't need to do that. Or I appreciate that, but that's a polite, because maybe the person felt obligated and really was hoping you would interrupt them and say, no, okay? So take that one last piece. Don't offer unless you really want to do it. Okay? All right? So anyway, I think that was a really good discussion for that and that we can understand that because I've had close friends and family members, that I cannot do anything for because they will not. These are older people generally, and they just won't. They will always take care of you, pay for your meal, take you out, get you, but you cannot do for them. Anybody know people like that? You have family members like that or whatever it is? And that's frustrating because you want to do for them, but then they won't let you. Okay, bring the mic. Who's got it first? Okay, Michael, and then we'll bring it to the live stream because okay, we can get Rabbi Tom, but yeah, they're doing gymnastics over there trying to get your attention. Jumping jacks and, calisthenics over there. I mean, they're trying to get attention. All right, Michael, go ahead.
Just a
What? It was related to that? Okay, Michael, is yours related to this? No, bring it to them. Let them talk about this first. I mean, after all, they were jumping out of their shoes trying to get the microphone over there. I'm going to get you guys like a Nerf gun. You can shoot him to get his attention,
It was just a comment from Raymond Ramlow on what you were saying. He said, expectations are often demands in disguise.
That's a good point, Okay. All right. Okay, Michael.
That was really neat because it actually complements what I was going to say. I've been doing the personality and the love language and expectations, and I just noticed that Rebecca, one of her, her love language was like selfless service. I don't know if it was because of Abraham, that's what he wanted, or however it worked out. I just picked up on that.
Well, look, this is a good point to kind of launch into something real quickly here. We often encourage people to get to understand themselves better. That way they can understand others better, especially if they're preparing for marriage. And one of the things that we talk about is the personality test just so you kind of understand your style of doing things in the other person, but also the love language thing. But I want you to understand this from a love language point of view. How you receive love doesn't mean the way you try to communicate it the same. Because there are those that their love language, the way they think they're communicating love to you may be acts of service, but you can't do for them. Okay? Because my mother-in-law, who has passed, but my mother-in-law, she showed love by saying, I washed for them and I cooked for them and I cleaned for them. Of course they know I love them. But you couldn't do the same for her, the same. I mean, not in a bad way. I'm just saying is she had a different love language for receiving, feeling loved. So don't necessarily read in what someone does in their mind that they think they're communicating love being the same thing as how they want to receive it. So you got to find out what speaks I love you to them when you do it to or for them, as opposed to assuming that whatever they do to you means the same thing back and forth. It doesn't work exactly that way. All right? They may have learned through their culture, through their family upbringing, that this is how we communicate love, even though that may not be the way they personally want to receive it, but this is what we do. We show we love people by doing stuff for them. Or we show we love people because we buy them stuff. Or we do show and that doesn't mean that's the way they feel loved back. It just may be how they were trained, indirectly or directly to communicate. Because maybe that's how their parents did it to them or what they observed. Okay? So that's real good. So what you see, though, is, on the one hand, Rebecca was very much a hospitality type person. She fit very nicely into the Abraham sort of, mold of what was going on. But you also see that part of the communication was the gifts. Okay? Because he came bearing all kinds of gifts. He didn't just give them to her, gave them to her mother and to her brother and to they were giving gifts to everybody to make them feel like, hey, this is a blessing, and it's like a dowry almost, like to give them the gifts, okay, for her. All right? So there's a lot of stuff we could talk about as far as the whole thing with Rebecca, and I'm sure we will, but I just want to throw that out there. But for all of you, you need to realize that, A, you don't know yourself well enough. You don't understand yourself. And some of you are thinking, amen, amen, I really don't know what I'm. Okay, you don't understand yourself. So these things like personality tests, etc., can help you understand yourself a little better. Okay, I'm not talking about like figuring out your sign. I'm talking about personality tests, okay? And so you can understand that there are patterns of behavior that fit into certain styles of personalities. You could recognize, oh, that's why I'm the way I'm at. Now I know what I need to do to kind of balance it and magnify the strengths, and kind of work on the weaknesses of that particular personality, style. And you recognize that you have a lot in common with other people that have the exact same sort of similar style. And why you kind of get along with and function better with certain styles than others and that kind of thing. So, you learn of that. And then the love language thing is very important because not just with marriages, but you could do this with your children, do it with friends. You recognize what lets the other person know that you care about them. We don't have to just call it love, but we're supposed to love our brotherly love, right? Brother, sisterly love, as well as agape love. These are not gender related, they're not marriage related, they're not sexual. They're just communicating, I love you, I appreciate you. And so you should know the things that you do, the communication that you're doing may or may not be well received because you may think that what you're doing is saying, hey, I appreciate you, I care about you, and the other person's like, whatever that was meant nothing to me. Okay? All right? Because if I buy you a gift, and gifts is like out of the 5 level, 5, if it's number 5 and you've got almost 0 points in it, you'll appreciate it maybe, but it's not going to score a whole lot of feelings of this person loves me. Okay? Now, if gifts is number 1 and I go and get you a little something, it's going to say, that person cares. And so there have been people that have learned that lesson where they've bought their spouse flowers or chocolates only to find out they could care less. And others who never buy their spouses anything thinking that's all they needed to do, something simple like pick up some flowers every now and then or a little something, just anything, okay, would show. It's just learning the languages. And so here we see, though, the demonstration that where Abraham we know was a very hospitable person, here Rebecca is behaving in a very similar way, okay, which that fits the culture that Abraham had probably instructed and taught and demonstrated to his family. So she would fit in there very nicely. Okay, who is next? Rabbi Tom?
Thank you. One thing that I noticed in 23 was the great respect that Abraham showed the sons of Heth. These people weren't covenanted, and he was dealing with them. He wasn't buddy-buddy with them or anything, but he showed them respect, and that respect was reciprocated. And in verse 6, when they said, "Hear us, my master, you are a prince of Elohim among us," they didn't say, "You are a prince of your Elohim," but they said, "You're a prince of Elohim." So they had, even though they weren't covenanted, they weren't being called, they had some recognition and tremendous respect for the one true Elohim. And I think there are a lot of people out there who are in that exact category. They know what we do, they have respect for us, as long as we behave right, and we should show respect for them. And they, just because they're not being called doesn't mean that they have to be mistreated or disrespected in any way. Some time ago, I had a problem with an individual, and I counseled with you, and you said, well, show him, be friendly and show this person respect, and if he reciprocates, everything will be fine. That's exactly how it worked out. And now I have respect for him, and he has respect. We're that far apart, but, spiritually, but we have mutual respect for one another, and even a type of love for one another, because
Amen.
He's in my family.
Right. Amen. And again, that was a situation where you were very far apart on some things, but you didn't really know each other. I said, well, you know what? Give it that chance, because we are not of the world, but we're in it. And because we're in it, we have to interact with it. And I'm going to answer this question on the ladies' halakha group at some point, but I think it fits into the discussion here for everyone. Listen, there is no instruction scripturally not to do interactions with people that are not covenanted, not to do business with people that are not covenanted. The point is, you're not to be influenced by those who are not covenanted. Okay? You're not to have intimate relationships in terms of bringing in like the daughters of the, like you see happen with with Balaam and Balak, and then going into Pinchas. You have the daughters coming in, and they're meeting, and the relationships that were then developing from there. Which is why Abraham, by the way, said, I don't want my daughter marrying any one of these guys. Okay? And we'll get into that in a second. But recognize that you can do business with anybody. All right? You don't need to worry about necessarily from a scriptural point of view what that business supports in their politics and whatever else. You personally might care about it, and you don't have to do business with anybody. I'm just saying I don't think that's a Torah halachic problem. I don't need to research when I go to the store or a restaurant where they're taking the money and how they're spending it. Oh, but if I go there, my money is supporting their stuff. Yeah, it's also supporting everybody that works their stuff and everybody else employed by the company's stuff. And who knows there's probably a really wide variety of things that are being supported by everybody your dollar paid for. Okay? It didn't just all go to the president of the company. Because I know people this is years ago, that would not go to Walmart. Well, because Walmart does this. Or they wouldn't go to this store because Walmart does, that other company believes in this. But your dollar is paying for all the employees there, all the people that worked in putting the building together, all the people in the driving the trucks and supplying. It's paying, that little piece is paying all kinds of people, and they could believe anything. As a matter of fact, they might be Messianic Torah Observant Israelites working at some of those places. So I wouldn't get all hung up on that. If you do, realize this, it's your issue, not his. Okay? So I'm not against you doing it. You can do whatever you want. I'm just saying, please don't think that it's a halachic issue. It's not a Torah observance issue that you do business with someone who's whatever. You fill in the blank, anything you would not agree with. Whether it's their lifestyle, whether it's their belief system, or their religion, or their politics. If it's something you would not do business with because you don't agree with them, that's up to you. Just realize it's not probably an issue for the Creator. All right? So I just want to make sure that was clear, and we will also be answering that on the latest halakha because it came up. But I think it was kind of a good time to bring that in because it kind of fit the discussion that we were talking about, okay? Because you know what? Abraham did business with people that were not covenanted. They were not part of the people of Yah, so to speak, at that point. And he treated them with respect, and he gave them a fair deal. Matter of fact, he didn't haggle with them at all. He said, name the price. I don't want to have any arguments. I'll give you whatever you say is a fair price. But you're also naming a fair price in front of all these witnesses. And so, get that fair price. And so, you may just want to make sure that when you're doing business, that you do it in front of witnesses. Just to make sure that everybody's aware, especially if you're lending something to someone or doing whatever, and they may say, well, no, that never happened, or you didn't give me that, or whatever. You need witnesses. And especially also if you do that and you then pay it off, you'd like the witnesses that it's paid in full, get a receipt, make sure you have something documenting that you're now obligation-free. As far as that's concerned, you have no more obligation. That's very important. Okay, who's next?
Is it okay
Shira?
to go to chapter 24? Or
Yes.
okay. Thank you. I am looking at verse 14, where the servant asks for a sign from Yahweh. And of course, the thought came to me in my past in charismatic Christianity. We did a lot of laying out of fleeces and asking for signs and got in some trouble. But I noticed that Abraham had already, in verse 7, had spoken to Eliezer that Yahweh would go before him. So, first question is, can you comment on, is this an acceptable way to seek guidance from the Almighty? And my second question is, perhaps Abraham's authority in speaking that ahead of time released the servant to be so bold as to ask for a sign.
Okay. Really good question, because a lot of people can get in a lot of trouble with this. I had a very good conversation today. I had an interview with a person came to interview for their comparative religion class. So it was good to hear and discuss what we believe with somebody else and everything like that to see. And part of the thing I tried to communicate to them is that what we try to do here that may be a little bit different is make sure that we're getting the full sort of context of what's actually going on as opposed to what people might read into it or jump to a conclusion. What's the actual context here? Is the servant asking something for himself? No. He wants to do what his master sent him to do correctly. So he's asking help in doing what the anointed, appointed person asked him to do to make sure he doesn't mess it up. That's very different than in your life saying, I'm wanting to maybe move to Cleveland or not, so I'm going to lay out this fleece as to whether I should move. That's not exactly what's happening here. Okay? So let's not use this verse to back that point up. You want to try something else, maybe we could try something else, but definitely this is a very specific situation. The man is given an incredibly important task. He knows Abraham is going to be very either excited or disappointed on how he handles this task, and so he prays, Abba, help me not mess this up. So that I get the right person, give me some sort of a sign. Here's what I'll ask for so that I can absolutely be clear and know this is the right one. You see the difference? Because a lot of you fleece throwers, and this fleece is all over Cleveland, just hanging everywhere. People are just throwing those fleeces out there. You are not only asking for yourself, which is not exactly what's going on here, although he was asking for himself, but not really. He just wanted to make sure that he could please his master. But also, he asked specifically towards the end that he was sent to do. You're asking for fleeces because you don't know what to do. Do you see the difference? I don't know if I should do this or that, so I'm going to throw out a fleece, and then if he doesn't do it, then I'll know not to do it. If he does, then I'll know to do it. That's very different than what's happening here. He knew exactly what to do and where to go and do it. He was told, go over there and go and ask and find my son a wife over there with these people related to me, etc., etc. And he said, okay, there's probably a lot of them over there, and let it be the one that does this so I know she's the right one. He had a lot of the details already, and he didn't have any problem knowing what to do or whether or not to do it. He wanted to just make sure he did it right. That is not what most people do when they throw out fleeces. or what they think they're calling it, the idea of throwing out a fleece. Okay? So let's just be careful with that. You're supposed to still be responsible primarily for all aspects of your life and make your best decisions you can and get the best counsel you can. Now, if you go to an anointed appointed, the anointed appointed asks you or sends you out on a task and you want to do it right and do what's pleasing to the person who sent you as well as to the Creator, then you may ask for help in it if you're not sure you know how to do it or can do it right. That you can sort of read into this if you ever find yourself in that kind of a situation. Okay? But also realize that, I don't know if I want to say this or not. At least in most people's understanding, we would be thinking that he's looking for the one right person. Now, I don't know that there's only the one right person for you out there. Because a lot of you think like, well, I got married to, I could have married somebody else, but that person ends up being the person Abba allows and uses to get you to be where you need to be, or whatever it is. Or you realize you made a terrible mistake and then you move on. That happens too. But realize in this case, he's being sent to do this. There's no dating process. There's no filtering process. He's going to go find somebody and bring her back, and this is going to be already a signed, sealed, and delivered deal. This is an arranged marriage. A lot of responsibility now in this compared to what you would normally be doing. So it's a very different situation than any of us normally would find ourselves in. Although it does bring up the question about whether or not we should be going into something along the lines of arrangement. Some of you would be like, I wish somebody had done it. It would have been better than what I did. And some of you who are still single are hoping that would make life a whole lot easier than me making bad choices. Okay? And I know I'm getting a lot of this and this. I got yeses and nos, and that's okay. Yeses and nos, I get that. Now, of course, those of you that are doing either one of them, having never done that before and having never seen whoever you would have do it, you don't know whether it would be good or bad. So you have an opinion that's just an opinion at this point. Because you don't know. You haven't tried it. I'm not saying you should, but you don't know. But just understand, this was the culture here. So he goes with a dowry. She agrees to the marriage, to go with the man for the marriage. Isaac has already basically implicitly agreed to whatever comes in and gets brought back, because he's not even involved in the decision at all. Abraham sends for this to be done for his son. So this man who's the servant, who's very trusted and respected of Abraham, he doesn't want to mess this up. So he's asking for, divine intervention, so to speak. He's asking for help from above. So that's a whole different sort of level of dealing with this idea of a fleece, okay? So let's not be doing that to help make our decisions. Your better mode of operation would be to go find an anointed person to interact with for guidance as opposed to fleecing all over the place, okay? Because I know a few people that threw some fleeces out and thought they knew what they were getting into, and then, you know what? It didn't work out. It looked like it did up front initially, because after all, by the way, that came up during prayer time, and I want to kind of throw that out there. I forgot at the time. When people ask for job situations or whatever it is, or interviews or whatever to work out, or, whatever is God's will in this or God's will in that, but you know what? He may not get involved at all. He's going to allow you to make a choice and have it either work or not work. Because you're going to think, if you get the job, that his will was in it. Anybody get a job that it turned out his will wasn't in it? Had a bunch of those. So getting the job doesn't mean that's like a fleece again. Oh, well, if I got the job, then it must have been his will. No, he'll use it to grow you in some way, but it may not have been his will. Okay? Knew a guy a long time ago. Called himself rabbi. I don't know where he got the title from, but I didn't see it. Okay? And he said that Yah sent him to a place out in the middle of nowhere in sort of central Tennessee. And I said, Yah sent you there? Yep, Yahweh sent me there. I said, how long you been there? 2.5 years. How many people come to your congregation? Usually just me and my wife. Yah did not send you there. Okay? There's no fruit. See, you're not always going to know until after. Now, I tried to tell him that, and he didn't like it, and eventually I said, look, you need to shut that down. You're just throwing your retirement money away, your Social Security, whatever you had, into the building that you rented for the 2 people to show up, you and your wife. This is foolishness. But he was insistent that Yahweh had sent him from where he was before to this place. See, I can say, whether Yah sent me here or not, I prayed that he would send me to the right place. But you know what? We got a lot of people that come here now. There's fruit that, whether it was his will or not, he's blessing it. So I'm not going to claim it was his will, but certainly he's blessing it. Now, if he wasn't blessing it, then I would certainly know it wasn't his will. I need to do something else. I have to change directions if you don't see the blessing. If the fruit's not there, something's wrong. So be careful with those, if it's Yah's will to get the job. Well, you might get the job and it not be his will. He might not care about which way you go with it. He's allowing you to experience. Maybe he wants you to or allows you to experience whatever the job will experience, but doesn't mean, well, I can't quit this job because this is the one that God gave me. No, he didn't necessarily give you the job. You don't know. Look at the fruit. Maybe you're just supposed to learn something and move on. Maybe it was a very big blessing in the beginning and is what you needed at the beginning, and now it's not. Wayne was very blessed with some of the things that have happened in the last year or two, and now he's looking for work again. But those other things that happened were a blessing at the time, right? Okay? And so they served a purpose. They just weren't going to last forever. And so that doesn't take away the fact that the things that he had been doing up to this moment were a blessing. They were part of the journey. Okay? So let's not jump into the shoes of trying to figure out and read too much into what Yah's will is in the everyday activities of your life. Okay? Then we're getting very mainstream Christian and thinking that he cares even like what color car you buy or, whatever. I knew people that are that way. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. I met a lady that said that God wanted her to have the Jaguar she has. I said, obviously you don't understand that he knows a little bit more about mechanics and stuff than, so he wouldn't have wanted you to have a Jaguar. He'd want you to have one that would work all the time. Sorry, I could not resist. A little rip on the old Jaguar. Okay? But I don't think we want to be serving, loving, and worshiping a creator that cared what kind of car you drive. He probably wants to have you drive one that works. Okay? So transportation, I think, is probably something he would care for you to have if you needed to get around, but not how pretty and how luxurious it is. But I had somebody try to convince me that, oh, no, you have to understand the way the doors open and everything else. Yeah, you had a big enough wallet, the doors will open real good for you to buy a Jaguar. Or Mercedes or anything else you want. If you got a pen and a checkbook that'll work, they'll let you buy it. God had nothing to do with it. Okay? All right, that's right. She said, going through a financial program where you actually get your finances right, that would work. All right, next question or comment. Okay, Rabbi Tom.
Thank you. First, a thought on fleeces. We have to be careful we don't get fleeced.
So you got to aim it right at your mouth.
Okay, a thought on fleeces. We have to be careful we don't get fleeced.
That's right.
Okay. All right, but...
and wait, hold on. Don't just laugh. That's a big problem. If you throw out a fleece, what you think you're throwing out, and Abba may play a big joke on you for being foolish that way and allow something to come along, and you end up getting fleeced.
Yeah.
Okay, any of you know people that have gone through that? Oh, well, I know it was God because I said this, and this is what showed up. Well, time and chance and foolishness can be a bad combination. Okay, go ahead.
I'm speaking from experience.
There you go.
Okay, but something I noticed here in the early part of 24 when Abraham wanted to get a wife for Yitzhak. He certainly didn't want him to marry any of the daughters of the Canaanites. That's understandable. But he told his servant to go to his land and to his family. And in verse 6, Abraham said, "Beware lest you take my son back there." And he repeated that in verse 8, "Do not take my son back there." And my thought was that Yitzhak was a very righteous man. He was covenanted. He was obedient. He ended up having a perfect marriage and so on. But I think the reason that Abraham said this at the get-go was because, and maybe you can elaborate on this, he knew that we can be products of our environment. We can be influenced by the people that we're around. And that's why he didn't want Yitzhak to go there, or certainly not to marry any of the Canaanite girls. And so we have to be careful who we associate with, even though, you know, what I said earlier about having respect for people, that doesn't mean we have to be good buddies with them or anything like that. But people can, and environments can influence us. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely. You know, what you see here is the patriarch is deciding who is appropriate to marry. Okay, that's first of all. You see that there's a you know, whether it's arranged or not, at least you can see that, you know, Abraham is deciding who is appropriate to marry. Now, the second part of it, which Rabbi Tom brings up, you know, well, I'm going to go there anyway, but I mean, ladies, you're going to get mad at me or something, whatever, but he was saying, look, I don't want my son going to her. That sets a terrible precedent where now he's going to go to her and be under the influence of her and her family, and he's going to have no authority over there. By the way, do you not see exactly this play out with Jacob? Okay? He didn't want what happened to Jacob, which is much later, obviously, to happen to Isaac. Okay? Because Jacob had all kinds of issues because he was at her house instead of her coming to his house. We see no issues ever with Rebekah. Rivka, no issues. There's not one negative verse anywhere. I mean, Rivka just sails through the whole thing stellar. But Rivka left all that to come be his wife. She came out from, right, leave and cleave, right? She came out from that whole thing. Well, not that everything over there was so terrible, because after all, Abraham did say to go find her over there. But she came now completely over to be clinging to her husband and to be under that authority. And not to put her husband in a place where it'd be hard to be under authority. And some of you men make terrible decisions. You go and move in, not only bad enough you might move into your parents' house, but you move into your in-laws' house. Nothing against in-laws, but you're going to be now way outnumbered. Okay, if you have an opinion that your wife doesn't agree with and your in-laws don't agree with and you're all in the same house, you're in trouble. And so I think that is also possibly a big part of this. I think Rabbi Tom would agree that that is a big part of what's going on here. It's like, don't let my son go there. My son needs to be here where he can be the leader in that thing without any challenges to that authority. Not that a strong enough man can't handle that, but he didn't want to do that to his son. So these are all possible pieces of that puzzle, okay? Don't take my son over there. She's got to come here. She's got to be willing to leave family to be part of a new family. Okay, and that's, really tough sometimes for people when they get married to recognize that you're now leaving, especially for the ladies, you're leaving that family to be part of a new family. And some of you couldn't get away from your old family fast enough. I understand that. But, it can be hard. Okay, to realize that you're not in the same relationship authority-wise as you used to be with your old family. You have a new family with its new authority, with a husband. And that husband, if he's in a right alignment, may still have a lot of respect for his father. And that whole vertical alignment go forward. And now you're coming under that as opposed to him coming towards where you came from. That's scary. You're going to have a pretty heavy level of trust and really, and you know what, interestingly enough, even though this was arranged, even though this was all played out, they still asked Rivka if she wanted to do it. And she said, sure. Okay? And so she trusted it as well. All right? But we will assume, based on her behavior and some of the other things, she may have already been one of those ones who had a relationship at a young age with Yah, that she understood she recognized an anointed, appointed, had sent this servant, And she knew who Abraham was, and because they all knew the reputation had gotten around. They knew that Abraham was flourishing and was doing well. Of course, Nahor and Lavan and all of them, they would know that she was not going to suffer. She was going to a wealthy enough place. She would be taken care of. She wasn't going into poverty or something like that, which is something people would want their daughters to, as Tevye said when his daughter was going to marry the butcher. Well, I know she won't starve, She won't starve. I mean, he's a butcher. He's going to always have food around, right? So, that's a parent thing. You don't want your children to have to suffer in those ways. So, that's all of that stuff is kind of playing out in here, okay? And so that's just so you see that all play out. All right, next comment or question? Okay, Rick?
Yeah, I had a couple observations on chapter 24 also. In verse 7, Abraham says to the servant, he sends his messenger before you, and you shall take away for my son there. And then in verse 12, he doesn't go looking for the messenger. He prays to Yahweh, Elohim of my master. So he didn't go looking. And he was sent to find a daughter. He's asking for her to meet before me this day. I just found that interesting. And the other thing I had a question about was and I'm sure everybody in the live stream has this because we get it every time during this Torah cycle, and I forget the exact answer, but the nose ring and the bracelets.
Verse 30?
Yeah, she hadn't agreed to anything yet. Verse 22.
Oh, we see it again. Well, he says it again in 30, but yeah.
Yeah. I didn't see her agree to anything yet, but the messenger may have already told her, so she allowed him to do the nose ring.
Yeah, a lot of the story is not played out exactly that way. I mean, you generally are not just going to let strangers put nose rings on you and bracelets and that kind of stuff. I mean, he explained and introduced himself. Hi, I'm here from Abraham and the whole thing. And she knew who Abraham was and, as part of the family, just like Abraham knew who they were and sent the servant there in the first place. Okay? And so she knew what was going on and that this was about a marriage to the son and everything else. And so she had already, in a sense, she had already agreed to these things. All right, so that's coming up. But when you're talking about these other things playing out, he says, and what if she refuses to follow? Okay, well, he says, look, that's why he said, well, don't take my son back there. You go and find, this is the plan that I know is meant to be what it is. Now, bear in mind that he doesn't go all the way to the tents and everything else because he knows the ladies come out to get the water. So he knew that that's where they would be. Okay? So, and by the way, let that be a lesson to all you single men out there. You don't want to be just hanging out in your living room thinking somehow that's going to work. Okay, you're going to have to go places that the women actually are, like at a congregation or at a feast event or something. Okay, now don't go out there with your, harpoon ready to, or spear to kind of get one, because if you're there looking for a spouse, you're going to have a miserable feast. But you need to be in a, potential rich environment. That one day when you're in one of those environments, you will meet somebody. Because generally speaking, they don't just show up in your living room when you're hanging out by yourself. What? Okay? No. Now, we do know one person, part of the congregation, who had one hand delivered to his front doorstep. That was a whole different thing. Okay? All right. So that's a great story, and you'll hear it, but that was one of those stories where he was almost like a fleece put out, and it did work out. But, the thing of the matter is, it doesn't generally work that way. Okay? Ladies, the same thing. You're single and you want to meet the right guy, be where Abba can lead. He went to the place, he says here, he went to a place at the time. He says, see, I'm standing here by the fountain of water, and the daughters of men of the city are coming out to draw water. He says he went to the place where that's where they go. Okay, I'm sorry, verse 11. He made his camels kneel down outside the city by a fountain of water at evening time, the time when women go out to draw the water. He thought, if there's going to be the one I'm looking for, she's going to be here. And by the way, notice that she wasn't at home doing her nails or some other things. She was working too. She had chores and things to do and was willing to serve and work. Okay? So ladies, don't just look for a guy who's willing to work. You got to be willing to do stuff too. She was about doing the stuff that ladies at the time did. And they worked pretty hard. They were taking care of stuff and the men were taking care of stuff. Okay, so they went out to get water. The men were probably in the fields or with the flocks or doing whatever their skill set was, whether it was carpentry or some other thing. And they were out there getting water for the flocks and what they needed to do. Okay, so just, recognize that everybody's supposed to be doing, 6 days you shall work is for everybody. That doesn't mean everybody has to have a job, but there's things that need to be done. And so, if you are wherever you are and you're not putting, you got 6 days to find something to do, something productive to be doing. We were put on this planet to be productive, to produce. He says, be fruitful and multiply doesn't just mean go ahead and produce offspring. It means go be fruitful. You have to be fruitful, produce something. We got a lot of people that are trying to figure out how to do nothing. No, I don't ever want to do nothing. I'd like to have more time to be productive in ways that I would prefer to have control over. Now, in this case, I'm actually doing what I'd love to do. But there were other times in my life when I was doing things because it paid well. It wasn't what I wanted to be doing. Okay? But you got to be productive. Now, if you're productive enough, you can have flexibility to choose to do something that doesn't pay as well, but is productive and you enjoy. Because you may enjoy something that pays well and you may not. So produce enough so that you can do what pays maybe not as well, but you enjoy doing. But you got to be productive. You should be doing something. Every day but Shabbat. And on Shabbat, what are you doing? You're worshiping. You're coming to meet with him and with the brethren. So you're still working. You're still doing something. You're producing something. Okay? All right. So hopefully that covers that. What else we got? Okay, Wayne?
Okay, in 24, what really stuck out to me was 26, when it says, and the man bowed down his head and worshiped Yahweh. And he said, blessed be Yahweh Elohim of my master, Abraham, who's not forsaken his love and commitment and his truth toward my master. So that's a beautiful picture there to me, because how many times have things happen in our lives where Abba answers and shows us some things and we forget to bless him and thank him for that. And it takes me back to Deuteronomy 8, when we're supposed to praise him and thank him for the blessings that he bestows in our lives.
Amen. And he does this several times, and he does it very publicly. He does it also in the tents, and after he recounts the story. And again, when Rivka says, yes, I'll do it, and everything else, he praises Yah and blesses Yah and says in a very public way. Now, bear in mind, there's still a potential here that it's uniquely to or limited to those who should know who Elohim is. Okay, so he is doing it in a public way, but he's doing it in a public way with people that should know. I mean, these are Abraham's relatives, okay, who he felt should know, okay? Now, bear in mind, a lot of his relatives were into all kinds of things that were not so great. That's why he left when was told to leave where he was, but still they would know. Because remember, he still had Noah and his sons involved up to a point in teaching, etc. So they would know and recognize, okay? All right. By the way, all the way back to the respect he got from the sons of Chet, we have, remember, Abraham has promised that those who bless you will be blessed, those who curse you will be cursed. Even if people didn't know this, they could know this by observation. So they were bending over backwards to try to do something for Abraham. Perhaps they had observed him to a point where they noticed those that treat him well get blessed back. Those who don't end up with some problems. See, that's another thing that, again, you may want to make sure that you're walking this out, because people should observe that in interacting with you, blessing can come to them as well. If they could bless you, they'll be blessed as well. If they curse you, you'll be cursed as well. By the way, remember that when you treat your brother, because you're only to think about yourself sometimes, but think about if you bless your brother, blessed you shall be. You curse your brother, cursed you shall be. Same thing. That's not just people outside treating the people inside. Okay? So it could be that they also recognize that. And that's something I was going to say earlier, so I'm glad I remembered to say it. Okay, who's next? Okay, Sarah Beth.
Comment, actually several, but going back to the comment about the fleece, he didn't just take the answered fleece and run with it. Oh, this means this is the one. She said, he asked her, whose family are you? Mm-hmm. And she said that she was from the family he was looking for.
Right.
Second part of that, as you have taught us, I believe this pertains to this circumstance, if I'm correct, that signs and wonders and these kind of things are to strengthen belief, like maybe the family's belief that this person coming from out of nowhere is being sent and this is a good thing.
Right, because remember, he gets to recount the story and he explains it to the family, giving the family even more reason to believe this is an appropriate and good thing, although they're still concerned. Now, notice there was another little event that happened. Mom says, well, let her stay a little longer.
That's my next point.
Okay, go ahead, ask your next question.
It's something that hit me last Torah study with Abraham and Lot, and then seeing it here as well. Abraham hurried to do everything. He ran to get the calf. He ran, everything was hurry, 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 hurry. Lot drug his feet every step of the way. The servant, every step of the way. I'm not eating. I'm not staying another day longer than necessary. Hurrying to obey and accomplish the mission.
Right. Okay, so we have, that's true, but we'll add something to it. Okay? And then I got another thing to add to it in addition that's sort of will be for the future. But, okay, the thing I wanted to add to it was, what is the likely chance that if they delay, that they find excuse or reason to try to not go or not do? See, he was like, I'm here. She said yes. Job done. Let's go. Okay? Because otherwise this can go bad. All right? So that's also part of it. It wasn't just, I'm in a hurry to please my master, which was true, but also in delaying, it could have gone in a different direction. All right? And that was part of the problem as well. Okay? And as we know, there's a man named Lavan in there, and he's always known for being upright and honest in all of his dealings. And so if given a few days, we know he wouldn't have tried to do anything underhanded at all. Actually, I find it really interesting because I never really paid attention to it as much as I did this time reading through. How Lavan is running around doing all this stuff, and this the same guy Jacob's going to run into? He changes a little bit when he gets a little older, and see, he's a little younger here in this situation and everything, but by the time we're dealing with Jacob and everything, we're having a whole different Lavan. Because here he is, he's running around, and he's hurrying up to get some stuff, and he's being all hospitable and everything. But he's still motivated by the same thing. This guy's got a bunch of camels and a bunch of gold and he's impressed with the wealth. So in some ways, same old Lavan. He just doesn't have everybody else to run around and do stuff. He's doing it himself. He was not as high in the totem pole at this point, so to speak. He wasn't as high ranked. But you do see that going on. But, add to that, I think he was in a hurry because he knew delaying could be problematic. Culturally, that would have been more, problematic. Because the longer you delay, the more we get things added to the negotiation. You see this with Lavan. Okay, and the longer things dragged out, the more Lavan wanted to change the deal. So I'm not sure that we could be wrong. I'm pretty sure we'd be okay assuming or inferring that culturally, even back then, delays would lead to renegotiation. Because the more they realize, wait a minute, maybe we get some more out of this deal. Maybe we could force him to come here. Maybe we could do other things. And this guy was like, nope, that's it. Now, he also could be like some of us men that we can frustrate our wives to some degree, but when we say, we're going shopping to get a suit. I did this the other day with my son, and we were done in about 12 minutes, and she couldn't understand how that was possible. Well, I went to a store that had suits, and they had one that fit and needed just the alterations. I tried it on, they measured me, and I walked out after paying the bill. I didn't have to sit there in front of the rack doing this. You know. Matter of fact, I didn't even look at the rack at all. I said, I need, what kind of suit you want? Black. Fine. Lady brought me out a black suit. Okay? And so, now, of course, the ladies might think the suits are easier, but then we can get to ties or get to shirt. But I mean, a lot of the men are on a mission. I came here to get this. I found it. I bought it. I'm done. I don't necessarily get distracted by the 75 other rows of things. Now, some men have that problem, though, if they're at, like, Home Depot. That's a different problem. Although some of you ladies have that same problem at, like, Home Depot. Okay, some of you like that store, too. But I'm just saying is, you know, he may have been like the kind of like I'm that kind of shopper. Don't like to shop. I like to just buy and get out. So he came there, mission accomplished, let's go. Okay? Next question or comment. Okay, Rabbi Tom?
Something I noticed here. Laban was the one, of course, who invited Abraham's servant in. And it makes a point of saying that he saw the jewelry his sister was wearing.
Sure.
And then in verse 50, it says, Laban answered, Bethuel too. Now, Bethuel was, of course, Rivka's father, but Laban, it has that Laban answered first. Laban seems to almost like usurp authority here. So he pushes himself into a leadership role and kind of pushes Bethuel out.
Well,
am I right on that?
You are completely right. But let's also add into the idea of culturally wise. Remember, women were not, we talked about this last week, women were not in the way we think of them today being respected to make their own decisions and to have their own choices, and they could choose who they marry, choose all these other things. So culturally, this guy knew, Lavan knew, this man is here with a dowry to get a wife for Isaac, period. And if it's not going to be Rebekah, then somebody else is going to get the dowry. So it might as well be Rebekah and we get the dowry. That's the way this selfish, greedy man thinks. I'm just throwing it out there as, you know, I could be wrong in assuming too much, but we do get to see his behavior later, and we see that it's fairly consistent. So just understand that if somebody was coming, this is probably not unusual, to go to the tents where there's lots of daughters, and to then be seeking a daughter for marriage, and to then make an offer of a dowry for their daughter, and those kind of things, that, hey, if this man says that's why I'm here, if the family was like, no, and he said, look, if it's no, let me know and I'll go somewhere else. That's what he means. He says, I'll go left or right. But that's the idiomatic phrase. Look, tell me no and I'll move on. I'll find the right one. I was sent to go get this done. I'm going to get this done. So Lavan's like, well, you know, let me just make sure to speak up. And there was a usurping there for sure. Okay, what you got on the live stream?
Okay, from Mark and Vicky Sessions, says, why did Abraham live in Beersheba? It referred to 22:19, and Sarah lived in Hebron in 23:2. Was this normal practice? It said that Abraham came to mourn as if he was away.
Okay, so you're in 22.
22:19.
19. Abraham returned to his young men, and they rose up and went through together to Beersheba, and Abraham dwelt in Beersheba. Okay.
And then in 23:2, Sarah was in Hebron.
Well, look, they were nomadic, okay? They moved around, and they probably had certain places they went as they moved the flocks around. So you don't have a very clear time change in verses between verses to know where they moved or where they went and that they had gone and had these things happen. But apparently Sarah died in that place that is Hebron. Okay?
I got a couple here on 24:2. Says, what is the purpose of making an oath by placing a hand under Abraham's thigh?
Something very strange, and I'm never going to do it. Nobody has to swear an oath by putting their hand under my thigh. I might slap you. Okay. It was, okay, I'm not sure if we would just say it was a tradition of the culture of the time, or it had more to do with an idiomatic phrase that meant something very specific as far as the intimacy and the seriousness of a vow. But we see it play out a lot in this few generations. Okay, we see it as you go towards, Isaac, but then with Jacob and Esau, and the idea of putting the hand under the thigh. So this was something that we don't do today. We don't understand. We're too disconnected by, like 4,000 years from the events that culturally we don't know. And again, we also don't know if it actually meant something very specific, that it's not literal the way we understand it, but that there's more nuances to it than just, somebody putting their hand under your thigh. It seems like a very strange ritual to do, okay? So we'll just go with, we don't get it. It meant it was very important and serious to them. It was utilized in only the most important and serious commitments, okay? When making vows, when making commitments, okay? So that's as much as I can say. Look, there's just like the idea of, the right toe and the right thumb and the right ear and all these other things. I mean, these are things that were part of a culture that we don't necessarily, we could point to an understanding and read into some of the symbolisms of that, but why did they actually do some of these things? It's a culture that we can't connect to, okay? It's just like the idea of putting a fence around the roof of your house. Well, why would you do that? Well, back then, people would actually put people to sleep on the roof. Okay? All right, so you want to make sure nobody rolled off. But we wouldn't put anybody to sleep on the roof of our house. So it doesn't like, why would you put a fence around the roof of your house? Okay, so there's cultural things that are just very different. Okay? All right, what else you got?
Yeah, that just reminds me. In the South, back they used to build houses. They used to have what they call sleeping porches. They had big porches around houses. That's people slept there at night. So anyway, from Evangeline Agalasso.
I think in the South they were just trying to feed the mosquitoes. Well, you put them out on the porch around the house. I mean,
Olivia and Janet Hoffman. In 24:6, what is the significance to mention the beauty of Rivka as well as Sarah and Rachel? Anything we need to learn about this for us women?
Not necessarily to learn for the women today, but just because there are things that play out that their beauty becomes an issue. You see this with Sarah, that Abraham was afraid because of her beauty that the king would want her. And this we see play out with Abimelech. We're going to see this play out again with Isaac, the same exact story. And so they're telling you up front that there is already a beauty issue. All right? That because she's beautiful, this is not necessarily going to be a blessing in their lives. And ladies, you know this. I mean, those of you that have had the experience of being, attractive, it's got its pluses and minuses. It will ultimately, hopefully, attract you the right one, but it might attract you a lot of undesired attention as well. Okay, and so they're mentioning these things, and they don't mention it about everybody, but there are a few in a row here where they do mention it, and because it ends up being related to the story. It's important with Sarah because it happens to play out with Abimelech, and it's important with Rivka because it plays out with Abimelech. It's important with Rachel and Leah because the difference in the two becomes an issue, because people have been avoiding Leah to go for Rachel because Rachel is more beautiful. There's something about Rachel that's more attractive. So where it's a part of the story, we hear about it. Other places, they don't mention somebody being beautiful or not because it has nothing to do with the story. They may have been or may not have been, okay? In this case, now bear in mind, she wasn't picked for her beauty. She was picked because she said the right things at the well, and she came over and made the offer, and it so happened she was beautiful. So that's another reason why I think it might be mentioned, to say, look, he was going to pick her no matter what, because she met the fleece, so to speak. And then we say again, by the way, she was beautiful. Okay, and that's part of God's blessing for her and for him. And apparently, Isaac was a pretty good-looking guy as well. Because she was like, who's that guy over there walking down the field? And she jumped right off her camel. I was like, well, who's that guy? you know? And then she was blushing and went to put her veil over her face because she's like, oh, okay, that's the guy. All right? Okay, next.
All right, from Jonathan Thompson, Genesis 24:21 says, Rabbi, does this action give us a pashat or remez understanding that connects us or parallels the master? Teach us how to pray where you point. Silent. I'm sorry, it's kind of mixed up. Genesis 24:21 says, Rabbi, does this action give us a pashat or remez understanding that connects us or parallels the master? Teach us how to pray where you point. Silence as key when we pray to know Abba's will.
Well, I mean, look, at 21 it says, and watching her, the man remained silent in order to know whether Yahweh had prospered his way or not. You know, it goes back to all of the deliverance and fear of Yahweh type stuff, is that we have to just be patiently wait and see and let things play out to know. So he wanted to let the whole thing play out. Now, of course, it says he was silent, but then at a certain point, he then says, whose daughter are you? Okay? Now, bear in mind, he gives her the nose ring and the bracelets after she feeds his camels, and not until, you know, so here then he goes, whose daughter are you? So he hadn't decided she was of the right family yet. He was really just appreciating that she was feeding the camels. Okay? That she was being generous. Just like you would, you know, someone who takes care of you well, you would give them a good tip, so to speak. You know, you would give them a gratuity. It's funny how language changes, because tip is something you give people before you actually eat, not after, but because it's an acronym, it's to ensure prompt service. It's actually tips. It's not, there's no such thing as tip, it's tips. You give someone a tips. But you do that when you walk in the place before you eat. At the end, you're giving a gratuity. And this was like a gratuity. She comes over and she hurries and empties her jar, and she ran back to the fountain to draw the water, and he's watching all this play out, and he's all excited, and he says, I would like to bless you, and he gives her a gift. So that also could have been why she had the stuff. Okay? All right? And then he goes, well, whose daughter are you? Please inform me. And is there room in your father's house for us to spend the night? What kind of hospitality do you have? And she says, there's plenty. Come on. We got room for you. Okay? All right, so what else you got?
From Angelica, Genesis 24:60, what does it mean to possess a gate? This is mentioned several times in Scripture, be it children possessing gates or enemies and even elders sitting at a gate.
Okay, possessing a gate has to do with having control over the entrances and exits of a place. Okay, so possessing the gates of your enemies would be the idea of, you know, like if they are on the water, you would have control over the ports. If they are a castle city type place, you would have control over the entrances to the city. And so that's what it really talks about. So it has to do with having control over an area. Maybe possess the gates of your enemies. Because if you have possessed their gates, you control them, they don't control you. They're not really a danger to you. Okay? Remember, that was the whole point of siege. A siege was possessing a gate of an enemy, and then you would win because you would be able to choke off all of their supplies. Okay, you would possess the gates. Okay.
Oliver Hersey had a comment on Genesis 24:58, example of arranged marriage as opposed to forced. It says Rivka chose to go, she was not forced.
Right. The arrangement was made, but she still had to agree. Okay? The arrangement was made, but she still had to agree. By the way, you see this in the Orthodox community today. A lot of them still do arranged marriages, but you still have to agree. Okay? And so what they'll often do is send you on like one date just to meet the person and see if there's any, good chemistry there or whatever. I mean, the person's already been hand selected because they know you and they know him. They know him if you're the woman, or they know her if you're the man. They know both of you. Okay? But you still have to agree. Now, of course, when we go back 100 or 200 years or more, that wasn't always the case. okay? That's what you saw in Fiddler on the Roof, An agreement is an agreement. If I say you will, you will. But today they do it more. You still have to agree. Okay. Next.
From Karen C. says, question, says genealogy seems important to Yahweh, at least it seems to be. Are any of the children of Keturah around today? Referring in chapter 25.
I do not know enough about the genealogies and where they are today to say that. As far as genealogies being important, it was important that people knew the lineage, so who was who. And, and because of that, Abraham knew who he didn't want his son marrying into, as opposed to, anything else. He said, I do not want him marrying a Canaanite. And so, but he already knew about the Canaanites and their lineage and everything else that he knew. Because remember, there was only so many lines of people living in these areas at the time, and so they knew the genealogies, they knew that whole deal there. See, but most of us would be this is the sad part, most of you would be very hard-pressed to know the name of your great-great-grandfather, let alone your great-grandfather. But if you can go back more than 3 generations, that's impressive. Of course, in the South, they may all still be alive, but that's different. Oh, you laugh. I went to go sell some kitchen stuff to a guy in Georgia, and he showed me a picture of 5 generations in one picture. I said, how old were you guys when you got all started? 15, 12, whatever. They start young down here, some of them. But a lot of us be hard-pressed to name even back a little ways. This segment sponsored by Ancestry.com. See, it's almost 10 o'clock. It's after 10, that's why. See, it's already after. You should have known.
I just told him
that.
Yep. From Olivia and Janet Hoffman, it says 25:8. Was this just a custom to have a burial site for all the family members, or is this a command? I know people do this as a custom even nowadays.
No, there's not a command for this. But obviously, there were advantages to that. Okay, because you would have that already arranged and set out and know that this is the place that everybody would end up. It's been provided for. This is also providing generationally, for things. Because, if things happen and you don't have a place, even back then, as it is today, it could be a challenge getting that all arranged at the last minute, etc. Of course, Abraham's not arranging this until Sarah passes, but then he has the need for that, but he secures a piece that's for everybody. And it's a pretty big, look, it's 400 shekels. It's an expensive piece of land. It's a big property with the cave and the whole thing. All right? Okay, what you got?
All right, from Rebecca Simpson. Is it the cousin thing is not an issue because in that time the bloodline was less imperfect as it is now, less DNA damage equaling less problems in the offspring? I think it.
This always comes up. It's a hard question to answer. It's stuff that was done then that isn't done quite as much anymore for lots of reasons, but also recognize the differences have to do with the sharing of fathers versus the sharing of mothers. Okay, and that's where it really becomes more clearly done the way it's done here. Okay, so cousins sharing, through mothers is different than cousins through fathers. Okay, fathers. Okay, you could share cousins through fathers, not through mothers, the same way. Okay, having the same mother would be a whole different problem than having the same father. And that's where you see Abraham with Sarah. All right? Different mothers. Okay? And so that's why, while they were related, not in a problematic way. Okay? That's it for live stream. Okay, I think we all need to give Abraham a huge round of applause for having all those children in his 170s or 50s or whatever he was. Oh my goodness, I'm reading this. We're in chapter 25. He takes another wife. He starts cranking out a whole bunch of more kids. This is incredible. I was going to say, I mean, he was, I mean, you know, I mean, but he was being fruitful and multiplying for sure. Okay? You were thinking the same thing? I was like, you go. I'm not thinking of it from that point of view. It was just like, it was just struck me like, wow, I mean, this is a guy, come on, could you imagine being 150, you're still changing diapers? Or whatever? Or dealing with babies? I mean, do you want to deal with a baby or, you know, some of you thinking I turned 50, I don't want to deal with babies anymore except as a grandparent. I mean, you know, but this is your own kids and you're the father and you're 100 and whatever you are. Because he's way up there at this point. He dies at 170, whatever, 175, but got a comment? Okay. I don't know. I just felt like giving Abraham a little recognition there.
Okay, well, while we're talking about fertility, I just wanted to point out that back in chapter 17:20, Yahweh promises Abraham that because he is going to bless him, he's also going to bless Ishmael and bring 12 princes from his body. And here in chapter 25, we have them named, 12
Yes,
princes.
we
And
do have the
I
names.
just thought that was cool that the prophecy was fulfilled.
Yep. Amen. But of course, you also have the idea that through the prophecies of Ishmael, we're looking for the 12th Imam, we're looking for the Mahdi. So, I mean, it can be looked at in multiple ways, as many things are that you find in the scriptures. In the literal fulfillment with the 12 descendants there, but we also then can look at it in a different way. All right, go ahead.
I just wanted to go back to chapter 23.
We don't go back anymore. We're done. No, I'm kidding. Go ahead.
I'll
23.
be quick. This is just something I really needed to say, was that when when the cave issue came about for the burial site, he started out.
You got to hold that mic right up to your mouth.
He started out with, I am a foreigner and a sojourner, humble as can be, you know, and these folks knew that he was a prince of Elohim and said so. But he started out so humble, and I just thought that was striking.
Yeah, you know, he comes and approaches it and doesn't say, look, I'm the rich, wealthy guy, you know, I need some space, you know, let me have some space. He said, look, I'm a foreigner, I'm a sojourner. I need property, my wife just passed. I need some property to bury my family members. Okay, I want to pay for it, I want to do everything right. Do you have some place I can do this, you know? But he's known for being, you know, among the most humble. I mean, you know, Moses also for humility. All of Yah's people should be known for the humility, you know. Okay? All right. Who's next? Anybody? What just happened for you? Okay. I just saw you react to something. Tell me later. Okay. Is that everybody? We got it all good? We're after 10 o'clock? Wait, back over here. We got more hands going up. And just when you thought it was over.
We got caught cutting up, that's all.
Okay.
I was just wondering if there was any promises for those children from Keturah. The beginning of 25, were there those children? Were they blessed in any particular way? Being descendants.
I think I answered that before when someone asked about that. I said I don't really have a good understanding or knowledge of what happened with those particular children. Okay? All right? Okay, Rick,
Yeah.
you could be last.
Yeah, and I had one quick I got a praise.
Okay.
My wife texted me the hot water is working now, so.
Yay!
Yes. I was wondering about Ephron. You know, why did the servant, or why did Abraham ask for his lot, the cave on, you know, the portion of his lot, to bury Sarah? And I didn't find anything previous about Ephron, but in Joshua 15, the cities of Ephron end up being one of the borders of the lot of the tribe of Yehuda. When you go on down. So it was interesting. That's actually part of their lot that they were given when they crossed over.
Yeah, remember, Abraham was shown where the land would be, and he knew where the space was he wanted. And so he went over to the people. And look, even today, you can find a piece of real estate that already has an owner to it, and you know you want it. You can walk up to the owner and say, look, name a price. I'd really like this piece of property. And a person might say, well, I wasn't thinking of selling, but, but you put the idea in my head, maybe I'll do it. And so I've been involved in some deals like that where I was the realtor, and, there was somebody that, ended up wanting a place, and the owner wasn't really actually thinking of selling at that point, but for the right price and the right thought, they were like, you know what, maybe we do want to, take a deal. So Abraham knew that's where he wanted to be and said, well, what do I have to lose but that offer? Okay? But now their initial reaction is a fear-based reaction. They respect him, they have awe, but they're afraid. He is powerful. And he said, no, I'm a foreigner, I'm a sojourner, I'll pay for it. You just tell me what it is, and we'll take care of it. We'll do this correctly. Okay? He probably could have just said, of course you're going to give it to me. I'm the prince, and you're scared of me, and you guys are little, and you're nobody. But that's not what he did. Okay? Oh, there are people that would be that way. And we see plenty of them in Scripture. But he's like, no. I need this. You deserve to be paid appropriately. And Abraham can negotiate, but he doesn't. He wanted to be fair. But you notice he also had the price offered in front of all those witnesses, where everybody would know if the guy was being fair or not. So he kind of forced the guy to be fair, because he's going to do it in front of everybody. And not just everybody, but he also had the men from the gates, the elders, so to speak. And so he assumed that some of them would have some integrity, and that the person, would. I had a teacher in high school did this to us, told us we could give ourselves our own grades, but that he had to approve it. Do you know people generally gave themselves lower grades than he would because they knew he was going to look? He said he actually had to raise a few. Now, he gave me exactly what I asked for, but... But, that's the thing, is that we can be hard on ourselves, especially when we know someone else is looking. Okay? Well, I didn't ask for more than I thought I just, guessed and approximated what I really thought my grade should be, and he approved it. Okay? So, but that's hard for people, though, especially when you have to evaluate your own worth. But he said, look, it's your property. Tell me what it's worth. I'll pay you. Counted it out. Now, of course, Abraham couldn't do that if he was broke. Okay? And so we're going to figure out how to work on that problem for a lot of us. And, some of you are thinking, oh, yeah, you keep talking about this. Listen, I've been broke. Okay, so I understand broke. Don't think for a second that I'm talking because I don't know what I'm talking about. I've been broke. I've been bankrupt. I've been all that. Okay, I understand broke. I understand what it's like to be broke. And I'm not talking when I was single in college. I mean married with children broke. Okay? So I understand. And yeah, but I've also found a path out. There's ways, there's things to do to get things right. All right, is that it? All right, who's going to close us up? Okay, give it to Charles. Let Charles close us up. Put his hand up. And hold on, Charles, till Gabe gets the camera on you. All right. Okay, Charles, go ahead and close us up.
Father, I would just thank you for this time that we've come here to have study and to bask in your word, Father, and just to get this understanding and this teaching, Father, that you've blessed us with. And we just ask that you let us take this and use it to apply it in our lives today. And we just pray that you bless us, and we ask that you answer all the prayer requests that were spoken of tonight, and to be with us as we leave this place. And we thank you and we love you and just praise your name. In Yeshua's name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Okay, thank you. If anybody wants to be on camera, come up here and wave good night to everyone. We can do that. All right, so Gabriel's going to let us know when everybody's on camera. So I think we should have no problem with the smaller group tonight than we have on Saturday. For those of you on screen who are not familiar with the coin, we do have a little thing on YouTube called The Legend of the Coin. You can find out why we are silly with our coins. But anyway, on three, we're going to wish everybody Laila Tov, Shavua Tov. Okay, Laila Tov, have a good night. Shavua Tov, have a good week. And then tell them we love them, you right? Ready? Here we go. 1, 2, 3. Laila Tov, Shavua Tov, we love you.
See you on Shabbat.
See you on Shabbat.
He didn't have any black. Hey, I just hide you somewhere over the rainbow milk.
Give him a little bit of applause there. He's still rocking it over 100. Tired again? We're gonna have to.
There you go. Okay.